Welcome everyone to our next series in our guest speaker series with Heritage Escrow. Again, like I was saying earlier, I wish I could see all your faces, but for now, know that I'm here with you virtually. So we're so excited to have Cody Gibson on today. We're going to be speaking on goal setting, business strategies that you will actually use, and how to plan for 2021. I know we could all probably use a little bit more motivation for 2021, make sure it's a good year for us. So I do want to take just a moment to introduce not only myself, but the rest of the Heritage Escrow sales team. So I'm Marissa Tour. I'm the Heritage Escrow rep in the Carlsbad office. I'm here in my office right now. We're centrally located off Palomar Airport Road, and I have the pleasure of representing 3 escrow officers, Holly Burt, Anella Mirashara-Lindo, and Jill Severns, and we handle all types of escrow transactions. So if we have not worked with you yet, we hope to do so soon. And with that, I will hand it over to Jara, who is our rep in the Rancho Santa Fe office.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jara Payne. I am the sales rep in Rancho Santa Fe, and I work with Stephanie Clark here and the wonderful Kristen Bramble. So I'm so looking forward to this wonderful presentation that Cody has for us today.
Okay, next, Mara, would you like to say hello?
Aloha, everybody. Hello. Good morning. Mele Kaliki Maka. I threw it all out there. I've got my background up today so we can get a little island fever going on in here. It's actually chilly in my room today. Good morning. I'm so glad you guys made it, and I'm excited to hear from Cody today. So I'm Tamara Armstrong, your Heritage Escrow rep in Temecula area. And I have the pleasure of working with Carol Hankey. She's also our branch manager, and Chanel Jones and her awesome team as well. And I also like to introduce to you guys our Irvine branch. And at our Irvine branch, we have Janet Tilbury, who's our branch manager there in Irvine, Holly Jezek, and Tara Vo. So if we haven't worked with you, I really look forward to meeting with you guys. So have a Merry Christmas, and I'm excited to hear from Cody.
Perfect. Thanks, Tamara. And with that, we'll hand it over to John in our Balboa Park branch. Hello, John.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you for the introduction. As Marissa said, my name is John Curry. I represent the Balboa Park office. We have 3 great escrow officers here, and we're led by Donna Hamilton, who's our branch manager. And then there's also Debbie Howe and Gianna Pino.
Wonderful. Thanks, John. And I also would like to point out we do have our Escondido office as well, which has Alicia Bagby and Kelly Pinero, 2 amazing escrow officers in our Escondido branch off Valley Parkway. And so that is our Heritage Escrow sales team. So we'll go ahead and jump in now to the presentation. I do want to mention we will be doing a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So with that, if you have questions throughout, throw them into either the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'll save a few minutes towards the end of the presentation to go through those questions. So I personally like hearing all of the questions, so hopefully you guys do have some along the way. And with that, I am going to do a brief introduction for our special guest today, Cody Gibson. He is he's a speaker and entrepreneur. He's been in real estate for over 20 years. He is an operating partner of 2 KW offices. He's a MAPS Bold coach for over 10 years. He's put 1,026 sales in 2019. He's put over 146 homes into contract in 1 single month. He's projected to put over 1,400 homes under contract in 2020 for this year. And he enjoys turkey sandwiches and long walks on the beach. So with that, Cody Gibson.
Great introduction. Maybe the best I've ever had, as if I wrote it myself.
You know.
So thank you. Very, very well done. You know, I really like when you think about the coming year, right? Quarter one's already gone in 2021. And when you think about 2021, everything you and I are doing, we know in our industry with the work that we do, we know that almost every single thing we touch has a maybe 90 days on the front end, probably more like 4 to 6 months in reality before results show up, right? Like before we actually see any fruit from it. And so really, when you think about 2021, I want you to think about how it's already at least a quarter into the year. Everything I'm doing right now at best is going to give me results in Q2 and Q3. And so really what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think more about 2024 and 2025. And I'd like you to think about what you want those years to look like, and then allow 2021 to be one of the stepping stones to it. One of the biggest, giantest mistakes that I think we make as entrepreneurs, and definitely as real estate agents, is that we look at the world in the course of a year. We look at the world in the course of January 1 through December 31st, and you hear something and you go, cool, I love that. I'm going to put it into play and I'm going to do it. But it takes 2 months or 3 months before we're actually doing anything with it. And then it takes 2 months or 3 months to measure anything from it. And then we begin to benchmark and trend it. And then we begin to tweak it and change it. And now we're 9 months into it. And then we wonder why we don't get what we want year in or year out. And what we tend to do, like the richest person I know said this to me. He said, we tend to overestimate what we can do in a year, while we underestimate, like we deeply underestimate what we can do in 3 years or 5 years. And I would really push you to think, like, what do you want 2024 to look like? 2021 for the business person is pretty much already set. I mean, you think about it just for a moment, right? Like, how dramatically different will you make your business in the next 12 months? Like, I look down and I go, all right, my business, I mean, I've already got the players I have. Like, you think about an NFL team, right? Like, think about an incredible NFL team. Where you guys live, you'll have to think far, far away. But think about a great NFL team. Is it too soon? It's too soon, isn't it? I got it. You think about an incredible NFL team, they end a season and they begin looking at the next. If they're ending a season with 2 wins and 14 losses, they're not looking at the Super Bowl the next year. If they're smart, they're saying, you know what? We're going to take 3 seasons or 4 seasons and we're going to rebuild. We're going to take 3 seasons or 4 seasons and we're going to go and recruit some franchise players. We're going to take 3 seasons or 4 seasons and we're going to retool our playbook. That's what they do. And that's what I want you to think about when you really think about business planning this coming year. I mean, I've done, I don't know how many sessions I've done in the last 3 months that have to do specifically with business planning for the coming year. But the overwhelming message that I'm trying to get across to people is I really want you to think about 2023, 2024, 2025. Like, you look at those years and then you look at 2021 and you ask yourself the question, and here's what I'd want you to write down. Like, who do I need to be by the end of 2021 for 2024 to be my year? And I promise it's going to be as good as it could possibly be for 2021. I mean, you look down and you go, man, I sold 10 homes in 2020. If you sold 10 homes in 2020, my guess is that you're not going to sell 75 homes in 2021. I mean, you could, and I mean, I've lived a life of anything's possible. I've lived that life. I look down and I think sometimes about how everything I'm doing is almost an illusion anyway. And you think about life in the sense that life is kind of an illusion. You might as well make it a good one. Like, what are we even doing anyway? Like, I finished the 9th grade to never go back to school. Didn't finish, didn't get a diploma. And in the 9th grade, I had like a 1.4 or a 1.5 GPA. They don't make people like me doctors. People like me don't become surgeons. We don't become attorneys. We certainly don't become judges. We become salespeople. We become entrepreneurs. And so I look down and I think sometimes I go, man, I look at my business and I go, okay, I own these 2 big real estate companies, the biggest real estate company in Oregon and one of the biggest ones in Arizona. My real estate sales team operates in 96 cities across the country, 22 or 23 different states. Like, I look down sometimes and I think, I'm not supposed to be here anyway. Like, this isn't the business I'm supposed to have. And so I say all that to say this, and I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth. Is anything possible? Yes, 100%. The problem is what most of us do is we hang on to the thought that anything is possible for so long while we're not doing anything that's probable. And we tend to think, like, we tend to believe, like, we'll end a year and we go, this next year is going to be my year. Like, Instagram is going to be full of posts in the next 4 or 5 days talking about how 2020 is finally over. Now, this year is different than any other year, because this year, when someone says 2020 is finally over, what we're really talking about is the COVID challenge of 2020. but who freaking knows what 2021 looks like? We could go deeper into this thing. Like, I don't know, and you don't know. You know, every single day I wake up and I hope that some late stage biochemical company has developed like an incredible vaccine. And I'm secretly hoping the vaccine comes in the form of a taco or a burrito, and we just eat one, and then we never have to deal with this again. And it becomes the greatest memes of all time of 2020. That's what I'm hoping. But my business doesn't have the luxury of hope. And here's what I want you to write down. A business doesn't have a heart, and a business can't have hope. Those two things don't belong in business. As a human being, you have a heart, and as a human being, you can have hope, but your business can't. Like there's no business model under the sun that says hope is a strategy. The challenge real estate agents are solopreneurs, right? As real estate agents, we own a business and run a business, but it's a solopreneur business. It means the lines get real blurred. And all of a sudden we try to be a business on one hand, but on the other hand, we live with hope. I mean, I do not know a more hope thinking person, real estate agent. Like I are one. Like we are the most hopeful people on the planet. We'll sit there and be like, well, my leg got cut off, but I still have one. Like that's who a real estate agent is. Like that's the cloth that we're cut from. We're like, oh, this is terrible, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Tomorrow could be it. Like that's who we are. And to a degree, that's magical. The problem is when that becomes our success formula, we tend to apply it to everything. And it doesn't work with everything. Like it doesn't work with everything. Hope isn't a strategy. Your business can't have a heart. You got to get that out of there. And when you think about the coming year, right? So Lacey, I'm probably 2 minutes from wanting that slide deck. When you think about the coming year, I would think, who do I need to be at the end of 2021 so that 2024 is truly my year? Like how many people ended 19 going 2020 is going to be my year. Like this is it. But I look down and I wonder how many years I've ended a year hoping the next year was going to be it. Like there's a meme that showed up about 4 years ago, and I'll use 2016. It said 2015 was practice, 2015 was preparation, 2016 was practice, and 2017 is my game. But you know what? That same meme got recycled the next year. And that same meme got recycled the next year. And I'm going to guess that someone's going to post on Instagreasy in the next couple of days, 2019 was preparation, 2020 was practice, but 2021, that's my game. That's my year. Screw you. Like at some point, you have to just go play. At some point, you have to say, you know what? I'm done talking about it. I'm just going to go and do it. I'm going to go on the field and I'm just going to play with everything I've got. And I'm going to quit looking at somehow next year is going to be great. Somehow next week's going to be great. I mean, you think about how many people are starting a diet on Monday. You think about how many people think, well, maybe next week, well, maybe next month. And here's what I want you to write down. Is it going to be someday? Is it going to be one day, or is this day one? Like when I think about the things I want to do in my business and the things I want to do in my life, I catch myself daydreaming sometimes and I think, oh, one day this and one day that. To hell with that. Today's day one. This is the day that I have. This is what I've got. And I think about, actually, I'll do 2 or 3 more minutes before I want those slides. I think about our bodies, right? And I don't know how to relate business better than personal because we're a people, like that's who you are. And here's what I want you to write down. Like the business is a reflection of who you are, but more than who you are, the business is a reflection of what you think. And you look down and if you earned 50 grand this year, congratulations, you think like a $50,000 person. If you earned 500, congratulations, you think like a 500K earner. And if you earned 5 million, good for you. You think like a $5 million earner. And so at the end of the day, if you want to make more money, it's not just about selling more homes. It's not about going on more appointments. It's not about lead generating more. Those things are not activities. Those things are results. The activity begins with the thought process. What do you think? Like if you want to earn more money, you have to increase your level of thought. Like you have to increase the thinking that you have. At some level, money will always meet you at your level of thought. Which is why when you over earn, you get rid of the money. Like you don't know what to do with it, which is why over and over and over again, I mean, everybody, you already know this, you already know it. Like when I see these things, you know it. And all I'm doing is confirming what you already know. It's like the person who wins the lottery. Like we would laugh if we were in person, the whole room would chuckle at the idea of somebody winning the lottery because you know what's going to happen. 99% of the time, they squander and lose the money because 99% of the time, the person who wins the lottery is somebody who didn't earn that much money. They bought a ticket for $1 and they won. They got lucky and they have $10 million. The person who earns $10 million doesn't quite often squander or lose the money. The person who wins it will usually squander and lose the money because they didn't have to earn it, because they didn't think like a $10 million earner. They think like a $30,000 earner or a $100,000 earner who bought a lottery ticket. And when that windfall of money comes in, they usually depart with each other. Rare does somebody hold on to it. And you know that to be true. And so when you think about this coming year, I would spend more time, like in my personal business, I'm spending more time right now worrying about how I think than thinking about what my business is doing. Because my business is always going to be a direct reflection of who I am. You know, and when you think about that idea of, is it going to be one day or is this just going to be day one? Like, I love all the cliche sayings. I love them because they last eternity for a reason. Like they stand the test of time for a reason. And you think about how, like, one of my favorites is this, like, you don't have to be great to start, but damn it, you do have to start to be great. But sometimes we struggle with that. Like we struggle with not being something away. And I'll bet if you're anything like me, we're from a similar cloth, that when you're not good at something, it drives you nuts. You're like, man, I'm supposed to be better at this. And then the person that you're hanging out with goes, dude, what are you talking about? This is your first 10 minutes on a snowboard. You should be sitting on your ass. And you're like, no, I should be better at this by now. And we have like this idea that we're supposed to be better than we are. But anybody who walked by would go, no, you're actually doing fine. The fact that you showed up, you're doing great. Like, look at you, you're out here. That's step number one. Like I remember, and we've all done this, right? We've all done it. I remember there was a day, God, this was 16 years ago. I looked down and I was 65 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I'm 5'11", and 65 more pounds on my body wasn't an attractive look. Like it didn't feel good. It didn't look good. There was nothing about it that I liked. And I remember looking down at the scale and having to look around. You get my point, to see it. And I thought, damn it, no more of this. This is the last day like this, damn it, no more of this. And I remember I hired this trainer and I was talking to this trainer and the trainer was like, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, hang on a second. How long is it going to take? And the trainer and said, Cody, you didn't get this fat overnight. And I thought, yeah, true. You got me on that one. He goes, so it's not going to work overnight. You're not going to lose this weight overnight. And I was really hung up on how long does it take? How long does it take? When am I going to see the results? And the reason I share that part of the story is this, what I've learned, and I don't have the space anymore in my life to do the one-on-one coaching. I wish I did. The only one-on-one coaching I do now is I sell it for fundraisers usually. And so I get a little bit of a taste for it, usually to raise some money. But when I was coaching one-on-one with real estate agents, what I found was when they were really hung up on how long something was going to take, almost 100% of the time, they were absolutely not committed to the process and the journey of it. They were committed to an end result. How fast could I get there? And what I knew was that if I couldn't back them off of that and get them instead to focus on the journey and the process, the finish line wasn't coming anyway. They were never going to see it. And what I've learned in my own life is that if I'll get really attached to the process and if I'll get really attached to the journey and quit thinking so much about the end result, quit thinking so much about the finish line, I look down sometimes tripping over and stumbling over finish lines that I wasn't sure I'd ever get to. But we get so hung up on where we want to go that we don't usually ever get there. And people say things, and I think sometimes it's stupid. People say things like, begin with the end in mind. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong, but it does inherently give you a problem. Because if you begin with the end in mind, that's fine. But that's a short-term thought, because the next thought better be, great, cool. What the hell do I do next? What's the very next thing? Like we look down at life. I don't know what the right step is 100 days from now. I got no freaking idea. I got no idea. The way life looks today is not what I thought it would look like 100 days ago. And 100 days ago, life did not look the way I thought 100 before that. And damn it, if we all go back to March of 2020, everybody could say life doesn't look the way we thought. But you know what we know about life is this: two things. One, you are always, incessantly, 100% of the time, currently dealing with a problem, about to be dealing with a problem, or just dealt with a problem. 100% of the time, you're in one of those three buckets. And people say things like, oh, I love surprises. Nah, no, you don't. You love good things that you didn't expect, because a surprise that isn't good is called a problem. And we get really attached to it. We're either leaving a problem, dealing with one, or about to be dealing with one. But you know what we also know? The second truth about life is this. Think about where you are right now. Think about what you've done in your life right now. You have a 100% survival rate. Nothing's taken you out, man. There's been nothing. There's been no business. There's been no deal that went sideways. There's been no, I mean, you guys get it. Like you have these 5 or these 10 transactions, right? And 5 of them die overnight. And you're like, that's really hard. Or you have like these deals that are all going to close and you've really been counting on it. And they're all 3 attached to each other and one goes sideways and you watch the domino, right? And you're like, oh my God. And you watch it and you're like, I don't know what to do. But you know what? That day didn't take you out. That day that relationship ended, that didn't take you out either. Like nothing has taken you out. You have 100% survival rate. As hard as it might feel, as difficult as it might be in the moment, just step back and breathe. Have a 5-minute funeral if you need to, but remember, you know what? I've survived so far. In fact, I've survived at 100%. I have a 100% rate here, 100%, not 50. I didn't survive half of them. I survived all of them. And so when you think about what you want your business to look like next year, I'm far more interested in what you want to look like in 4 years or 5 years, and then looking at the next year as what rung on the ladder does that need to be to make that year show up in 4 or 5 years. Because we get too myopic, we get too zoned in on a 12-month period. And here's what happens. I've done this for 20 freaking years. Here's what happens. You run off in January, February, March thinking I've got all year. Well, that's a problem. Thinking that you have time is an inherent problem to a producer. A producer, write this down. A producer always thinks they're out of time. A producer always thinks they're under the gun. A producer always thinks the clock is about to run out. And people say things like, I do best under pressure. You really don't. You don't. When you really understand it, you don't do best under pressure. You do best under focus. The challenge is what we do is our success formula is we allow the clock to give us focus. So I'll use football as the example again, right? There's 2 types of people, those who love football and those who like it. But if you look at a football game and you watch them, it's not uncommon to see a team in the 4th quarter, like doing this great comeback drive or doing this, like these 2 touchdowns. And you always hear like the announcers, right? You always hear them saying something like, oh my God, where was this team in the first 3 quarters? Like, where were they? Like, how did they not show up? If they'd have played like this, they wouldn't be trying to come from behind. And it's not because they do best under pressure. It's because they look up at the clock and there's only 1.5 minutes left or 2.5 minutes left. And all of a sudden they have extreme focus. The second they have a down, they run back to the line of scrimmage. The second they get out of bounds, they don't there's no hugging or high-fiving after a tackle. They are hauling ass back to the line to make the next play. And if they played like that in the beginning, the team you already know this is true. And so when you think about the coming year, you hit July or August. And if you're on track, everything feels great. But if you're not on track, what usually happens by July and August is we begin to fall back. And by September, we start thinking about next year. Go back and look at your last 5 years. Go back and look at your last 10 years and tell me if I'm wrong. And you begin to think, well, this year was this year, but next year's my year. Next year, I'm all in, baby. Next year, this is it. And I promise you, that's a fatal error. Is it going, or is this going to be day one? So Lacey, I'll take that slide deck. when you think about the coming year, what I would push you to do when it comes to the real estate sales practice is I would get really clear. I would get extreme clarity on how do I go out and take 10 listings a month. Now, for some people, 10 listings a month seems like a long way away. For people, 10 listings a month, they look down and they go, oh my gosh, 10 listings a month, that's not even enough for me. By the way, can you guys see my my slides on your, I just want to make sure that you can see these slides.
Yes.
Okay, good, perfect. And so what I want you to do is I'm going to give you real quick the 7 steps to 10 lists, and I'm going to wrap it into the idea of how you prepare and how you build for the coming year. Number 1 is this, and it's I mean, I've taught this to maybe, I don't know, 150,000 realtors at this point. Make 1 listing appointment every single day. But this has more to do. I need you to write this down. Setting a listing appointment every day has more to do with habit than it does to do with skill. It's a habit issue. It's a habitual issue. I don't believe that we choose our future. I believe that we choose our habits, and our habits will outlay or lay out our future for us. We choose our habits. We don't choose our future. And at the end of the day, setting a listing appointment is habitual. I was told early in my career, Cody, if you set a listing appointment every single day, you won't have any problems. And there's a listing appointment sitting on your desk. Your job is to ask the right questions to uncover it. So I want you to set a listing appointment every day. It doesn't even matter. I mean, does it even matter if they're motivated? Not at the end of the day. Not if you're setting 5 a week. Not if you're setting 20 a month. Not if you're setting 140. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter, because it gives you enough. And you think about it, when you're setting a listing appointment every single day, making the appointment means making the calls, right? And I'll just use the calls as like a placeholder. It doesn't matter to me if you're a lead generator on the phone. It doesn't matter to me if you do geographic or sociographic farming. It doesn't matter to me if your lever for listing appointments is from your database or your farm or your sphere of influence or your referrals. It doesn't matter to me if you have, it doesn't matter. Whatever lever you use, you better use it to set an appointment every day. I'm going to use the phone just because it's an easy example. And it means making calls means even if it takes 10 or 20 or 50 in a day, are you committed to the listing appointment, or are you committed to some number? And I'll tell you, be committed to the result of setting one. Can't stop. Like, if you go down this road, don't stop calling until you have that appointment, but you start the habit. And you know what? You go out today and you go, great. Today is whatever the hell today is. Today's Thursday. So you go, great. So it's Thursday. My job, my one singular focus today is to set a listing appointment. As long as I do that, everything else is going to be okay. Everything else will deal with itself. I'll get through it. But it's a habit. And whether you do or you don't almost doesn't matter, because you wake up tomorrow and you go, great, I'm going to set a listing appointment tomorrow. People will often ask me, they'll say, how do you get to the point that you sell 145 in a month? And you go, well, it's easy. You don't start there. Nobody starts there. You start at trying to sell a house a month. And then you go, cool, how do I sell a house every single week? And then one day you look down and you go, cool, I wonder what it would look like to sell a house every single day. And then you go, cool, I wonder what it would look like to sell a house in the morning before lunch and sell one in the afternoon after lunch. By the way, success is sequential. It's not simultaneous. You build on it, right? You get better at it. There's nothing in your life that you're an expert at that you began that way. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, we all understand the difference of a white belt versus a black belt, right? Now, I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 kids. I don't know why I said 4. I've got 3 kids, and my son is 19. His name's Gavin. And when Gavin was like 7 years old, he was in Taekwondo. And I remember his mom and we went to like one of the testings, right, where they were going to go to the next belt. And they brought out all the white belts, and it was super cute, right? Like, all these little tykes, all these little kids, like, they came out and they did like their stuff. And it's called a poomsae in Taekwondo. And then they had like the blue belts and the brown belts and the red black belts and all that stuff. Then the black belts came out, and man, they were fun to watch. Like, they were jumping in the air and they were doing their stuff. And then like the guy came out, the owner of the studio, and he came out and he's like a 9th, or we'll call him a 10th degree black belt, right? I forget which one it was. It was a lot. And he came out and he did his, and it was really impressive. And then he walked over to where all of us parents, and he said, I want you to notice that the poomsae was essentially the same moves for the white belt as it was for the black belt, that it was for me in a 10th degree black belt. The difference was it didn't look the same to you as the parents. And I want you to think about your business that way. And if you're a blue belt, I mean, in the real estate sales business, I'm an absolute black belt, but I didn't start that way. And if you're a blue belt, then you act like one and you run like one and you sell like one. And you go, cool, there's going to become a day that I get to test for the next belt and then the next one and the next one. The problem is we want everything to happen right now, but it doesn't work that way. So number 2 is this. I want you to visit a for sale by owner or an expired door every single day. Now, here's the problem you have, right? Especially where you are in Southern California, you don't have a whole bunch of for sale by owners to go see. And you don't have a whole bunch of expireds to go see. I completely understand that. For 2 decades in the real estate sales business, I've been able to go and visit a for sale by owner or an expired every single day. This is the first year of my career that there was like basically none. And even the markets, like my real estate sales team sells in 96 cities, right? And some of those markets are incredible for sale by owners and expireds. But even this year, like it's not happening. Like the market is so swift and the market is so hot in so many cities that even cities that had expireds last year in a hot market have like no expireds this year because it's even hotter. And so I've left this just as a placeholder. And all it means is visit somebody that has motivation. Like right now, we've had to get really creative. We had to get really creative. Like, what door could I be in front of every day that's a motivated person? At the end of the day, my business is going to be dictated by how many motivated people I can be in front of every day. And so it's just a placeholder. You think about it. By the way, we use Land Voice to find those FSBOs and expireds. I don't make any money from it, but it's on the screen, so I'll say it. Landvoice.com /3. If you ever use them, they'll give you a discount. I don't make anything from it, but they'll give you a discount because of my name. For sale by owners have one hand in the air saying they want to sell. Expireds have 2 hands, right? I want to sell and I'm willing to pay you money. At the end of the day, this is about showing up, being the way for good things to happen. And I always think, like, I think about a story. I used to, like, when I was doing more coaching, I was coaching this agent and he was selling 100 homes a year. Really a good book of business, man. 100 homes a year is awesome. But you know what's also interesting about the story was that would have been in maybe 06 or 07. Like if you sold 100 homes a year in 05 or 2000 when I started, you were King Kong. Like you were awesome. We put you on stage and we sat at your feet and worshiped the words that came from your mouth like they were honey from heaven. And 100 homes a year is a great book of business. But today, if an agent sells 100 homes a year, someone says, you know what, good job. Don't give up on yourself, kid. You'll get there someday. And the only reason is this, because we've got agents today that are selling 500 homes a year, 1,200 homes a year, 3,000 homes a year. Like my group this year will end up at about or 1,500 sales, but I've got another friends, the team, and they're going to do 2,200 sales. And I got to say this. I believe, if you're listening to me right now, I believe that your era of the real estate. We've had the era of the brokerage. That was the 70s and the 80s. We've had the era of the franchise, and that was the 2000s. But today, I believe that we're living in the era of the agent. Because the agent, like my group selling 1,400 homes this year, will homes than most brokerages will. We'll sell more homes than most real estate companies will. And I believe you're living in that. Like, I think it's all changed. I think it's all completely different than it used to be. But what's not different is this. What's not different is at the end of the day, I have to be in front of somebody who's motivated. Now, it's for sale by owners and expireds. Great. You're in Southern California, you don't have a bunch, which means you've got to find another alternative, to find another way to get to them. And one of the ones I use, it won't show up on the screen anywhere, but I like using likely.ai. Check them out, likely.ai. My friend Brad owns the company. We use them in all 96 cities, and they help us to people who are motivated. They help us to find through artificial intelligence based on what they're doing online, the algorithms of their behavior. This person's probably likely to sell in the next year. Well, that becomes who we're talking to every day. All right. If race, I need you to replace. And what I mean by that is this. Thursday, your job is to be at the front door of somebody who's motivated. Well, that might come from a phone call back on Monday. It might come from internet lead generation a month ago. Like we do a ton of internet lead gen, like a bunch of it. We do a bunch of pay-per-click. And what's interesting about 2020 is that our pay-per-click this year, we have more registrations from less dollars. In other words, we're spending less money on pay-per-click. Our CPL has gone down, which is cost per lead, right? But if you erase, you got to replace, which means if I'm not at a front door today, I've got to be at 2 tomorrow. And if I'm not at those tomorrow, I got to add it to the next day. At some point, you get to the level where every day you see the front door of somebody who's motivated. If you'll do that, you don't have a problem in this industry. If you'll do that, the only problem you end up with is how do I manage people? The only problem you end up with then is how do I build a business around it? Because I was really good at selling, but now I have to be really good at leading and running a company. 2 different things, by the way. Do 2 APIs weekly, even if they're fake. Now, 2 APIs look like this. This would be an absorption-based pricing index. One of the greatest things that we've done the last 2 years in my own company to find listings, especially when listings are tight. And right now, like in my group, man, it is competitive. Like it's combative. We are working our tail off for listings. And I'll bet in Southern California, and I already know it, you are too. Like you are competing. It's competitive. And so one of the things that we've done is we've done 2 APIs. Now I'll time out real quick. An API is an absorption-based pricing index. It looks suspiciously like a CMA. You and I would know it as the CMA. The reason I call it an API is 2 reasons. Number 1, I believe it's more accurate. Number 2, I just want to be different. Like I learned a long time ago to be different than all of my competition. The first time that a for sale by owner that I was calling on said, oh yeah, cool. Can you shoot me a CMA? I was like, I better quit calling it this because I didn't want to look like everybody else. Now, you and I know that realtors are not created the same. You and I know that realtors are not equal. You and I know, there's realtors in your city that are no good at what they do. Like you ever look in the MLS and you find somebody and you go, wow, I wonder how they got this listing because I know this person. Like, that's strange. Like, I know it. Like, I know it. And then you find somebody who has multiple listings and you're like, what? How big is their family? This is garbage. How does this person, like, I know this person. Like, I know. But to the consumer, we all look the same. To the consumer, we're the same person. And I love, one of the authors I love is Seth Godin. Seth Godin wrote a whole bunch of marketing books, and one of the books he wrote is called Purple Cow. Well, the idea behind Purple Cow, it's a great read, by the way. The idea behind Purple Cow is exactly what I'm talking about. It's just how do you look different? You think about a field of cows, they all look the same, of course, and realtors all look the same. But what if, just what if you looked out there and there was one purple one? It'd be the only one you could focus on. And so in my sales business, I always think, how do I be the purple cow? Like if everyone's using the same open house signs, I'm going to use a different one. If they're all the same that like hang from the thing, I'm going to do a sandwich board sign. If everyone's using a white colonial yard arm post, I'm going to do a black one. Like I'm going to do whatever I can to look different from everybody else. Now, here's what we do. We do 2 APIs a week. So if you're a real estate agent, you want to sell more homes, do 2 APIs a week, even if they're fake. Now, if you've got people who need them, then they're not fake, but do fake ones if you don't. And here's what you do. You pull somebody out of your database, or you pull somebody out of the geographic or sociographic farm that you're working in. You run a CMA. We call it an API. By the way, API is absorption-based pricing index. It is the most realistic way to price a home, meaning if we quit listing in this price range based on how many sales we have in the last month in the price range, based on how many units we have available for sale, tells you the absorption rate. Do we have 2 months inventory, 2 weeks inventory, or 2 days inventory? And at the end of the day, that is the most realistic way. But then here's what you do. You email it to that person. So let's say that you're running one for Jim, and Jim bought a house from you 4 years ago. You send it to Jim. Now, it won't be on the screen, so you have to write this down. The script, and it only works best like this. The script in the email is, hey, Jim, I was doing some research on your real estate holdings. Already you sound like an expert. I was doing some research on your real estate holdings. It looks like your home in the current market is worth about blank. Now the blank isn't the price. And you would never ever like put a PDF of the actual CMA, or what we're going to call an API. You would never embed that in the email. It would never be an attachment. It's a blue hyperlink that takes Jim to another page. And it's a page that you have some eyeballs on. Now, I'd like you to write down 13%. Unfortunately, 13% is not the new proposed commission rate. Like if you're anything like me, you feel extreme pressure on commission. Like it is beating down our neck. Commission is tough right now. And what you do is you put it there because then you can go back and get eyeballs on how many times Jim looked at it this week. And then the person you call on Monday, you call Jim and you're like, hey, Jim, did you see that email? You know he saw it because you saw when he opened it. But the reason I had you write down 13%, that's the percentage of emails that get opened. So big business tells us 13% of all emails get opened. We don't know what percentage get read. By the way, 92% of all text messages get opened. Lacey, you can take the slide deck off. And that's what the unsolicited CMA process is. That's the simplest way for us to have found listings this last year that we didn't already know about. And what happens is you get an idea and you're like, all right, this person looked Tuesday at 2 p.m. They looked Wednesday morning. They looked Friday afternoon. And when you call on Monday, you're like, hey, and you just play dumb, which has always been easy for me. You play dumb and you say, hey, Jim, did you get my email? You know he got your email because he saw that he opened it. Then you go, great. Did you have a chance to see the absorption-based pricing index? You know that he did. You know that he looked 4 times this week, but you don't admit it because that sounds creepy. You don't want to be that guy. You just play dumb and say, did you see it? And then you answer any questions. This was the easiest way, the best source for us. The second best source for us this year for listings, besides this, was a Facebook A to Z. Now, the Facebook A to Z is so easy. I learned it from an agent named Ryan up in Canada, and Facebook A to Z looks like this. There's 26 letters in the alphabet. There's 30 days in the month. It's very easy math. What you'll do is you'll send a direct message to everybody. Like if you were to start today, you would send a direct message to everybody with A. Tomorrow, everybody with B. For the men in the room, the next day, everybody with C. And on you go. And every single month, you're going to send a DM to every single person. Now, here's what we've learned. There's some rules to it. By the way, we track, let's see, it was last month, we sold like 109 or 110 homes in my group. And we track what our lead sources are, right? Because we want to know where to put more money, where to pull back on money, where to put more focus, where to pull back on focus. Like it matters, right? Like what worked 12 months ago doesn't work today. So quit doing it. And so we track our lead source. Did you know that our number 5 or number 4 lead source most months, and last month was over triple digit sales? Number 4, 5, or 6 is almost always Facebook A to Z. It's one of the easiest things to implement with one of the best ROIs, one of the best returns of investment. Now, what we've learned is it does have to be done a certain way. So it won't be on the screen. I'm just going to give it to you. Rule number 1, it's got to be short. And I always think about, attention span. Like I'm a real estate agent, I'm a salesperson, which means my attention span is pretty small. Like if I'm not careful, it's like, oh, bone. And I look over here like squirrel, like I'm over here. Like I have a small attention span. I bet you do too. So short. So I like to think like Twitter. I think Twitter, it's like 250 or 270 characters. It's not very much. I'm going to guess that there's somebody really intelligent who has paid a lot of money who said, you know what? The average attention span is probably about this many words. And instead of me building it, I'm just going to use it. Same thing with marketing. When you think about marketing, you and I say things as real estate agents. We say things that aren't true. We say things like we're masters at marketing. No, we're not. We're not. We are not masters at marketing. I mean, I'm a realtor, so I mean, this is just me and my friends right now. Our clients aren't here. We are not masters at marketing. You know who a master at marketing is? Coca-Cola. You know who a master at marketing is? Honda, Toyota, Nike, Apple. Those are masters at marketing. You and I are never, as cool as we become, we are never going to have the marketing budget of those giants. Never going to. At the same time, though, I was at an event this last year that I was keynoting, and the speaker before me was the guy from Facebook. And the guy from Facebook was telling the whole audience, he said, listen, for the first time on planet Earth, your ad on Facebook shows up just before or just after an ad for Toyota or an ad for Honda. And so as minuscule as your and my marketing budget might be, we now do have the opportunity to be in the same space. And that's incredible. All right, so back to the Facebook A to Z. So keep it short, like 250, 260 characters. Rule number 2, don't break the rules because it won't work. Rule number 2, it can't be about real estate. The Facebook A to Z is not, hey, do you want to buy, sell, or invest? That's garbage. Don't do that. This is a direct message. Personal is best. Like if you saw that they went to Disneyland, then you could say, hey, how'd that Disneyland trip go? At the same time, like, let's be real. Like I look at Facebook And if I ever feel bad about myself, I just go look at my Facebook because it says I'm full of friends, can't accept anymore. So I must be doing okay. And so I look, and if I look at that and I go, all the A's, it could be hundreds. I'm not going to do hundreds of individual messages. So it's going to be copy, paste, copy, paste. But what do you think I'm saying in December? Hey, Merry Christmas. What are you guys doing for Christmas? Like it's that boneheaded. January is already easy. Hey, how'd your new year go? How's it going? Blah, 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 blah. February, easy. You got Valentine's Day. March, like you've got 7 or 8 months out of the year that are already easy. They're simple, like the 4th of July, Thanksgiving. It's easy. But think about this. That gives you 12 incredible direct touches with your database every year. That's not emails. That's not text messages. That's not letters in the mail. It's just through social media. And I use Facebook as the placeholder. You could use whatever, but I promise you, it's one of the simplest tactics that we've used that has the best return of investment. And you know what it cost? A little bit of time. Now, you copy paste. It's going to be the same message for most people, right? Unless you know somebody really well. And tomorrow's the B's, the next day is the C's. And if you miss somebody, because that's real life, then so what? Just skip that letter. And the worst thing happens is maybe the C's only get 9 touches this year from you, or the D's only get 11. Big deal. So what? It doesn't matter. Now, I'll end with this, and then we'll do some Q&A, right? Texting needs to be your thing. I was reading, I don't do a ton of reading outside of business books, but I do read the Harvard, the Business Review. I do love those. And an HBR that I was reading about, God, this was like 2 years ago, predicted that within 5 years, email would be dead. Dead. Think about your email. Like, I don't know about how you treat it, but for me, it's like, listen, an email, I'll get to that someday. Like if they need me, they're going to text me. Email has a 13% open rate. And so that email that you bang your head against the wall to craft just right, just remember 13% is going to get opened. Who cares? Send the damn thing. Send it. But you ought to be moving it to text. 92 or 93% of all text messages get opened. Think about how we just ended an election year. Depending on your political state of view, you might believe we're still in an election year. Totally fine with me. Whatever you believe is cool. But you think about how much texting played this year, right? Like you and I were getting texted. That didn't happen 4 years ago. It's for damn sure happening right now. So we're sending tens of thousands of text messages right now in our group every month. And there's some rules we've learned about texting, and they won't be on the screen, so I'll give them to you. Rule number 1, again, shorter is better. The less professional it looks, the better the result. And this is a weird conundrum about what's happening in our industry and what's happening in our consumerism right now. Look at an airport, right? Like, I mean, I'm a professional speaker that usually would be in a city or two every single week. Right now, I'm just in my basement. And so like this year has been so weird for me. I have never slept in my own bed this many nights. A couple of weeks ago, I went and slept on the couch just to get a different view. Like I'm tired of it. Like for somebody who travels for a living, it's been what it is. But anyway, you look at an airport, right? Look at airports. Do airports right now, this is so important to your real estate sales business. Do airports have a whole bunch of large chain restaurants, or do they have more local restaurants? Today, most airports have gone to more local restaurants. The consumer doesn't trust big business. The consumer trusts local business today. And another telltale sign of this was what happened with microbreweries, which became a really big deal in the early 2000s, 04, 05, 06, and they ran until 2012, 2014. Right now, it's like the micro wineries, and right now you're seeing micro liquor showing up. Like you're seeing micro booze and micro vodka. That didn't happen 10 years ago. As a real estate agent, watch what the bigs are doing. Here's what Anheuser-Busch did. The giant beer conglomerate went and bought a whole bunch of the microbreweries, and those microbrewers were like, cool, you're going to pay me that much? I'm out. I don't even like beer. See ya. Thanks. Bye. Anheuser-Busch went out and bought hundreds of them, but left their name on the can because the consumer trusts the little guy more than the consumer trusts the big guy. Anheuser-Busch doesn't give a damn what name it is. They don't care as long as you buy one of theirs. Now, I say that to say this. Real estate agents, you've got to turn the tide back. You've spent the last decade trying to look more professional. Probably because we needed to as an industry, right? Like we are just above car salesmen. Like I understand that. I get it. But that's not what today is about. Today is about being more human with the humans. Today is about being able to communicate with people at a humanistic level. So you got to get rid of that professionalism. So with texting, let me go back to texting. Short, make it unprofessional. I know that seems weird, but if you're going to text somebody, like if you're going to text a friend, you would never say, "Hello, Bob. Hope you and Susan are well. How would you guys like to come up to the house and dine with us on?" You would never say that. You'd go, "Bob, do you guys want to have dinner on Thursday?" Do you get me on this? Shorter is better. Number two, unprofessional. Make it just direct. Make it humanistic. You would much rather see an email from somebody at Nordstrom that said, "Hey, I saw you were looking at those boots. What do you think of them?" Than somebody who goes, "Dear Cody, I saw that you were previewing some boots on our website. None of that stuff matters anymore." The third rule is this, and I know this goes against the grain for some of you listening. Typos, text messages with typos get a better response rate. Now, there's two types of people out there when you're texting. Type number one sees a typo and fixes it before sending it. The other type doesn't even realize there's a typo. And once they send it, they go, they'll figure it out. They know I didn't mean duck. There's only two types of people. That's it. It's type 1 and type 2. That's all there is. What we find by beta testing it, a mistake or a misspelled word. I told you I dropped out of high school, so I'm real good at this. A misspelled word gets a better response rate. You know, the next thing that gets a better response rate, this one will blow you out of the seat. Emojis. Our business text messages get a better response if it has a freaking emoji in it. Now, just think just for a moment. I'll bet if you're listening to me, the better you know somebody, you could have the whole flipping conversation with no words and only emojis. Just emojis. That's it. You can get your whole point across with just the emojis. Well, you know what? If that's how you communicate, it's how your consumer communicates. 92 or 93% of text messages get opened. You shouldn't be worrying about your email drip campaign this year. Throw it in the freaking trash. What you should be worried about is, what does my text campaign look like? Because that's 92 or 93%. So that's all the words I could say without taking a breath in 51 minutes. And I'll wrap it with this. When you think about the coming year, this is not the year to go and work a 12-month plan. This is the year to work a 60-day plan. This is the year for micro commitments. This is the year for, what do I do in the next 10 minutes? Like, I'm breaking my day up right now into chunks. I have the early morning chunk. I have the late morning chunk. I got the midday, mid-afternoon, evening, and late night chunk. Like, that's how I'm looking at the world right now. I'm doing what you're doing. I'm waking up early. I'm putting in more hours than I've ever worked because I don't know what to do right now. And some of the things that worked 2 years ago, they're not working right now. Like, I've been able to go and work FSBOs and expireds for years. I don't have a bunch of FSBOs and expireds to work. So I either say, cool, I guess that's gone, or I go and replace it with something. I'm working harder than I've ever worked. And so many people would love to double or triple their business, but they don't want to double or triple their time. Screw you. I don't know anybody who doubles their business that doesn't put in more time to get there. You can't have uphill goals with a downhill habit. Doesn't work like that. Now, here's what happens. You put in extra time. You throw extra time at it. You work late at night. You work early in the morning. You throw Sundays at it until you double your business. Then once you achieve it, then you say, cool, what do I do to pull the time back so I don't blow up? Like, that's what you do. If you're trying to get super fit, you're going to go and do 2 a day or 3 a day workouts, but you're not going to do it forever. You're just going to do it until you get somewhere. Remember, it is always easier to maintain than to achieve. But it takes a whole lot of effort to achieve. Then once you get there, then you back it off. And the saying, and then we'll open it up for a few questions. The saying that I'm trying to convey to you is one of the oldest sayings I know, which is this: you can't lighten the load until you've been willing to feel the burden of it. You got to feel how heavy it is. Then you lighten the load and you go, cool, I've been putting in 70 hours a week to double my sales business. I can't do that forever. I'd love to see my husband. I'd love to see my kids. Cool, I'm with you. But you're going to have to put a lot of time in. Then once you get there, then we back the time off. Then we find efficiencies. All right, so now that's literally as many words as I can say without breathing in 54 minutes. Marissa, is there any questions in your chat? And I'm good on time. Are there any questions in the chat that we could talk about or directly answer?
Cody,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, Cody. Yeah, we did actually have a few questions. Any attendees that have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat now. We'll make sure Cody answers them. But there were a few that we do have for you. You were talking about, obviously making that listing appointment. How long do you give yourself? Obviously, if that's not your habit as of now, and you make your habit, whether you're doing quote unquote 2 a days, 3 a days, to get to that point, when do you give yourself a break? Like, do you give yourself like a week doing 3 a days before you make that appointment, a month?
That's such a good question. Here's what I want you to do. What I want you to do is I want you to work like you're going to set one every single day, but you can't beat yourself up when you don't. Like, I'm going to work out like I've got a 6-pack, but I went by the mirror today and I don't have one right now. Like, but I'm going to work like I do. Does that make sense? And what I want you to do is I want you to measure progress, not perfection. And if you're working your ass off and like if I were coaching you and last month you averaged 1 a week, I'm going to have you work like you're setting 1 a day, but I'm not going to expect 1 a day. Like, you don't go from 0 to 100 and you don't in a short amount of time. I'm going to work like I could, but I'm just going to measure progress. This is about progress to me, not perfection. Now, here's what I've learned. Even with the most basic, brand new, off the street real estate agent, I'm always going to measure heart more than I am brains, which has been good for me because I live on heart. But I'm going to measure that. And what I've found is that most of them within 6 or 8 months can be setting an appointment every single day from scratch. From scratch. They could be there within 6 or 8 months. They could also take 3 decades and never even sniff an appointment a day. And so time isn't relative to achievement. There's some relativity to it, but it really doesn't matter. But within 6 or 8 months, as long as you have the work ethic and the heart and the desire, I, as a coach, could get anybody within 6 months there if they're willing to do it, but most aren't. Just like most people, like the people that you see on stage, like for physique competitions, like bikini or physique shows, they look freaking incredible. Unless they're in the pro league, they look incredible. Most of them didn't look that way 12 or 14 weeks ago. Go and look at some of the before and afters, and what you'll find is you're like, are you kidding me right now? Most people could change everything in 12 or 14 weeks, but they don't. They take 12 or 14 years to talk about it. So I'm going to measure progress. If last month was 1 a week, you know what? Maybe this month is 2 a week, but I'm going to work like 1 a day is possible.
Great. Thank you so much. Another question, you mentioned the likely.ai, which we put in the chat, Lacey put in the chat for us, and Land Voice. Can you just tell us briefly about those real quick?
Wow, that's a good question. Land Voice is who I buy data from. So Land Voice gives me data for sale by owners and expireds, but also like circle prospecting data. So we do a whole bunch of circle prospecting, like new listings, just sold, just listed. I got to know data. I got to know like the owner's name, and I got to know like their phone number or their email address or whatever I can get, or their social media, whatever I can get. And so we buy that from Land Voice. Likely.ai, what they do is you tell them what zip code or what area you're in, and then they go out with their algorithms. Now, they only sell a certain amount of platforms per city or per zip code. But what you ought to look at with likely.ai, which is super cool, Brad, the owner, I got him to do this back in August, and it's taken months to get it ready. And it's like just right there. I said, what would it look like if I could take my database? We'll call it 1,000 people. My database is tens of thousands, but we'll call it 1,000. If I could take 1,000 people and I could run their name and email through your likely.ai system, and then you could send me back my 1,000 people in a list from most likely to do business in the next year to least likely. Freaking gold. He's like, Would people like that? I'm like, Brad, oh my, are you kidding me right now? Like if I could have like an inside view of who's likely to do deals, yeah, that's who I'm calling. He goes, yeah, we could do that. I'm like, oh my God. And so it's taken months, but they're finally at the point that you could go through and do that. And then they can also clean up the data. And so they send it back and they're like, yeah, this email address you have is no longer valid for this person, or this phone number you have is no longer valid, or the address is no longer valid. They moved and you didn't know about it, which is two bad pieces of news.
That's awesome. Also on the topics of websites and apps, for the text messaging, do you use any like call multiplier or anything, or would you recommend that?
Yeah, the challenge with the call multiplier, so like I like callemall.com. Like that's an easy system to go use. Callemall.com, and then you also have gosh, what was the one that you used to be able to call people? Slidial. Remember the one that everybody started using where it would go right to their voicemail? And you're like, you dirty dog. Like, I got a voicemail, but my phone never rang. You slide-dialed me, you son of a gun. Which, by the way, is still a really good idea to do. Slide-dial does mass texting as well. I am hesitant on the mass ones because they're risky. It's kind of like using auto dialers. They're risky right now. Like I do use auto dialers. I just won't tell you which one. And we're using like the single line ones because the mass dialers, which isn't necessarily, we don't have mass texting as big of a problem, but the mass dialers, the auto dialers, that's a $15,000 offense. And a friend of mine just got popped. This is a real estate agent, not a great big business, a realtor. Got popped for 200 grand in Michigan, and he had to pay it. Like we used to laugh on stage. We're like, yeah, we budget in, an offense every year. No one's laughing anymore. Like it's very real. So you can do it. You just have to, we're just using the single line ones. So the ones that only ring one, because the multi-lines are the ones that would ring 4 and then just connect you to the one that said hello first, and it would hang up on the other 3. That's what people got pissed about. And then you have the robo dialers, right? Like these are just all hot buttons. They won't stay hot buttons forever, but they are right now. But the texting is simple. Like there's no legislation against mass texting.
Great, thank you. And then you were talking about the API. Is that a different strategy or just a different word?
Just a different word. I do weight it more. So like if I looked at a CMA and an API, a CMA is going to heavily weight towards other sales in the neighborhood. An API is going to heavily weight towards the consumer's demand versus, what's the right term? I lost it. Demand versus inventory, and which I think is more accurate. Like if we have a 9-month inventory, like if I'm selling homes in Southern California and the $10 million to $12 million range has 6 months inventory, that's a different pricing structure than a home that's 1.2 that sells in 6 hours. Like that's a different structure, and I'm going to price it different. And so what I like about scripts and dialogues that are real is that I believe them. And if I believe them, I can sell them. And so I personally believe that absorption-based pricing is the best way to price something, regardless of what it was worth 25 days ago or 10 days ago. If a whole bunch of listings came on the market today, guess what my value just did? Like it's going down no matter what the historical data is. I am not an appraiser. I'm a real estate agent, and a real estate agent deals with what I can get you tomorrow, not what it was worth 10 minutes ago. Now, right now, the market's escalating, so you can kind of take a price, add a little bit to it, and see what happens. But that is not the way our industry looks as a career. It looks that way for a year. But 88% of all realtors today have only sold in an extreme up market. You find a guy like me who was around in 2000 and 05 and 2010, and we're like, this is not the way the industry looks. It's just the way it's looked the last 5 or 6 years. But damn you, this is not life as normal. It's just life today. Like we're going to go back. We're going to go back to a market where you actually have to list homes and then like sell them, like actually go and peddle them, not just manage offers.
You mean you don't always just get 40 offers on?
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, like, we've got a new agent in our Portland team. Like in Portland, I have a mega agent team, right? Everywhere else is expansion, but we have a new agent in Portland that was like, yeah, I put this on the market and I only had 5 offers this week.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, you son of a bitch. Like, do you realize how many years I was in the business before I even had 5 offers on something? Like, that's real life, right? I mean, this is just real life the way we see it right now. But that, I mean, oof. Like, but by the way, again, the richest person I know in real estate says this. He says, you never prepare for the market that you're in. You only prepare for the market you're going to be in. It's too late for the one you're in, man. You're in it. You're swimming. Do the best you can. But if you're going to prepare, you prepare for the next one. And so that's what I'm preparing for. Like, it can't stay like this. It cannot stay like this.
Absolutely. We had another question. What about daily mailers to expireds? Does that count for your expired?
Yes, if you're at their door.
Mailers?
If you're at their door. So the mailers are fine, but they don't count for the 1 door per day. The 1 door per day is based on the idea of getting in the way of something good to happen. The 1 door per day is where you actually go and see their front door. You could put the hanger on their door if you want. I don't care what you do. You could even say, I'm just going to go see their door. I'm not going to knock. That's cool. If you're going to go, you might as well knock. But if you're not going to knock, at least go. This is about progress. It's not about perfection. And people always ask, like, well, what do I say when I get there? Well, Scooter, you could say hello. And my guess is if you'll go do that in 100 days, you'll do better than hello. But if you won't go and say hello, teaching you an amazing script that's going to take 10 minutes is worthless. If you won't just go and say, hi, how are you? Then it probably won't matter. There's probably a really good way to ask somebody out that you'd like to go out with, but it doesn't matter if you're unwilling to say hello. And so I look at it like that. And I look at it in the idea. Somebody said to me, they said, I went and they were talking about an expired or a FSBO or something in their farm or whatever. But they said, I went and lost the listing. And I said, time out, Holmes. Did they sign the listing and then cancel it right away? Because unless they signed it and then canceled it, you didn't lose anything. You didn't get it, but you didn't lose it. Now, I know it's a play on words, but that's what matters. Like, you didn't lose anything. You just didn't earn one. So what? You didn't lose a damn thing. You can't lose what you don't have.
Agree.
So go to their door. Take the hanger to their door. If you're going to mail 50, you probably can't go visit 50 doors, but mail 49 and go see one of their doors. And what'll happen is over time, that's going to be 5 doors a week. That's 20 doors a month. Sooner or later, even if you don't knock, they're going to be walking out the door when you're walking up to it. Something's going to happen. You're going to get lucky.
That's great advice. Another question, has your practice changed much with COVID? What's your daily practice to help with mindset? What should a typical morning look like for success?
Yep. So, I mean, I'll answer this, and I've got to run in about 2 minutes, but what I'm doing right now, like, this sounds silly, but I'm so careful about what I put in my brain right now. Like, I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to read. I don't know what to look at. Like, I disagree with everybody. Like, someone goes, oh my God, COVID's terrible. Like, oh my God, you're right. Somebody else goes, COVID doesn't exist. And I go, oh my God, you're right. Like, I don't freaking know. I don't know. And like, I have to be careful with myself because I love conspiracy theories. Like, if you show me a couple of YouTube videos, I'm going to believe the world is actually flat. You show me a couple of videos, I'm going to believe JFK wasn't shot, like he's still here somewhere. Like, I'm going to believe everything. Like, we never went to the moon. It was all just like from Hollywood. Like, I'll believe all of it. And so I'm real careful what I put in, real careful. And so one of the ways that my morning routine looks right now, as dumb as it sounds, is like when I'm getting ready in the morning, I bring my iPad like into the bathroom and I just go to YouTube and I start listening to motivational videos. As elementary and dumb as that sounds, I know that what goes into my brain matters right now. I've always been a big note writer. Like, I've always written on the mirror. I've always written and left notes all over the place. Like I drive people crazy. But I know that for me, like, those notes and those things are like snacks for my brain. And I love to snack on food. So my brain loves to snack on positivity. And I leave that out there, but I'm real careful what I put in. But yeah, COVID's changed everything. Like, in some cities we work in right now, we've gone back to not being able to meet in person. I've got partners in Florida Florida is basically like, hey, COVID doesn't even exist anymore. Like people in Florida are going to clubs again. I've got partners in California and they're like, I can't even go outside. Like I'm supposed to put a mask on in between bites. Like, I mean, it's so different everywhere. Like you realize today more than any other time, the difference of red states and blue states. Now I live in Oregon, like we're one of the most liberal, right? So Oregon, like we're going to be in quarantine for the next 15 years. Like that's who we are right now. And so has it changed? Yeah, it's completely changed, but it's opened up opportunity that didn't exist. Like I couldn't get 10 business owners to go on a Zoom call with me 2 years ago about how to build their business. But today I can go to my database and say, hey, I got a dozen small business owners. Let's put together a group. And every week we're just going to get together and talk about best practices for how to push your product during COVID. And you know what? They're going to show up. They wouldn't have come a year ago because it didn't matter. But today they will. Like I couldn't have built a supper club a year ago, but a friend of mine, one of my partners, built a socially distant supper club. Lacey, if you'll throw it in the chat, built a socially distant supper club in the North Atlanta suburbs and built it from one person to almost 2,000.
Oh, wow.
And all they do is choose a restaurant and do like a meal of the day. And this guy built this group of 2,000 people on Facebook. That's a whole database. And that didn't happen 12 months ago, but it can happen right now. So as much as it's changed things, it does what it always does. It shakes a tree, something falls out of it.
Great. Well, thank you so much. There are a couple more questions. If we email you those, would you be able to get back and we can
100%.
get back to those people?
Yep.
Awesome.
And I love connecting with people. So if we haven't connected on Instagram, I'm Cody Gibson 1 there. Facebook says I'm full, so we could do that. My email is codygibson@kw.com. Heritage Escrow, you could ask them. They'll get an answer from me and get it right back to you. Like they're your partners in this. I'm happy to do whatever.
Perfect. Well, I was going to ask for your socials as well, so that's great. And then also, do you have a website you'd like to put out there for people to find more about you as well?
CodyGibson.com is the easiest. I'm constantly doing some type of webinar or some type of thing. You can check it out there. I will say this, like the last thing I'll say, do something that is strategic giving. So if you go to CodyGibson.com, you'll see that I'm giving away some Christmas trees in Portland. You could choose to do it or not do it, but do something that gives your business an opportunity. A great book to read around it is called Give and Take. And the author's name is Adam or Andy Grant. I always forget which. I think it's Adam, but it has like a rope on the front and it's called Give and Take. And his whole thing is how to do strategic giving. And so how do you give, but also receive so the business can make more money? Because if the business makes more money, you can give away more things. And so you'll see that I'm always doing something. Like I just raised $20,000 for No Kid Hungry, but No Kid Hungry, the reason I did that was I could raise $100 or $1,000 for a bunch of different charities, but there's no juice. If I could send one check for $20,000 to one charity, there's some juice in that. There's a pretty good chance I'll end up on the main page of their website. There's a pretty good chance. I mean, it doesn't happen right now, but there's a good chance if they were doing like an annual gala or a giant party, they might invite me to come and speak. But if I sent them a check for 500, they say, thanks so much. If I can send them one for 50 grand, so read Give and Take. It's a great one. But Cody Gibson, I don't know how the hell I started talking about that, but CodyGibson.com, you can go there.
Yes, no, that's great. And I totally agree with you on that. So yes, that's great. And I do recommend everyone to go follow Cody on Instagram because he's full of inspiration, as you can tell, full of positivity, which I love. So thank you so much, Cody, for being here. Thank you for everyone for attending this webinar. We will have it available to you afterwards as well. And thank you everyone so much. Have a great day, you guys.